Picking up where we left off, we'll now discuss how to use more than one table. Now, according to the principles of table design we talked about, you'll remember that we really don't want to be storing the same data more than once. So I've changed our tables up a bit. Name is still the same. However, instead of using purchase like we did before, we're going to look at product, which now has the name of the product as well as a new column for distributor. And we have this other table called purchases that actually contains our date of purchase along with the IDs for the other two tables. So now we're going to need more than one join to connect them. If we start with the basic join we had before, with select star from purchases, join name on name.id equals name underscore ID, then we simply do another join on product with product.id equal to product underscore ID. And if we execute this, we'll see that it actually combines all three tables. It has the name as well as the product and the distributor. However, there's a couple of things that aren't ideal here. First, you can see that the column for your product name is just called name. This could easily be confused with a person's name. Also, when typing these, we're having to use our table names, and that can get long after a while. So we're going to solve both these issues by using something called aliases. To do that, we simply assign another value to the word that we're using. For example, purchases we can shorten to P. Name can be shortened to N. And product could be shortened to Pro, since we already have a P. And then instead of having name, we can just have N. Instead of having product, we can have Pro. And when we run it this time, we get the same result. Also, when we're doing our selects, instead of selecting all of these different IDs and a name that doesn't fit with our data, we can simply select what we want. So we can say name underscore ID product underscore ID DOP first name last name. Oops, that isn't capital. And then instead of using, we'll still select name, but instead of calling it name, we're going to say as product name underscore name. And we don't care about distributor right now either. So now when I execute, we're going to get a much cleaner list. Instead of name, it now says product name, so I can keep it clear. And I didn't have to retype the table names every time I was getting specific. In fact, if I wanted to add the IDs, I could even say p.id, n.id, and pro.id. And then I can add those IDs back in the select. And I could give them some names if I needed to keep them uniquely identifiable. So the aliases work both ways. But for now, we'll go back to our original information. From here, we're going to talk about the halving clause. The halving clause allows us to further filter our data now that we have it looking the way we want. To use the halving clause, we'll go to the next line and simply type halving. And let's say we only want them after a certain date. So we'll say DOP greater than, and we'll put it in quotes because it's not an integer, and we'll hit execute. And now we'll see that we only have the results that are further filtered by having a date later than the one we selected. Now this looks a lot like the where clause, and in fact you can even use them together, where last name like O and now we only have the ones that are after a later date and have an O in their last name. However, there is a few differences. The where is going to happen earlier on in the process than the having, and there's some things that can come in between, and we'll talk about those in a later video. Well, that's it for joins. In the next video, we will cover some of the things that you can do with the query results after you get them. Brought to you by CreativeOnlineSchool.com.